Recording in progress.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Donna Chow, and I am your host and your moderator for today's class. Here at eLotus, we have been hosting educational courses for over 2 decades, and we are proud to be your trusted source for premium CU content with over 200 speakers, 700 courses, and 3,000 hours of continuing education. We recently implemented a new webinar sign-in process to make it easier for you to participate in the webinar and earn CEUs. You may have noticed that you no longer need to register your name and email address before entering the Zoom webinar room. We found a way to do it automatically for you so that the only thing that you need to focus on is learning something new in class. So today's webinar is Acupuncture for the Soul, Guardian and Support Archetypes, presented by David Hartman. This is the last of a 7-course series in which David has given a weekly webinar on the 5 Element Archetypes and 5 Spirits Acupuncture. To watch the complete series, you can now purchase all his past webinars on video and earn CEUs. Even better, I recommend the Gold Pass membership, which allows you to see them all for free, as well as receive unlimited CEUs and free herbs. So before we begin, I'd like to go over a few items to familiarize you with our webinars and how they work. Today's webinar will be from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time, and we will have one break. For lecture notes, you can download them directly from the Blue Course Access page in your eLotus account. To use the webinar chat room, set your chat preference to everyone so that everyone can see what you're typing and be part of the conversation. To ask a speaker a question, enter your question into the Q&A box. If time allows, the speaker will respond to them. And finally, the quiz and the video replay. You will be notified by email tomorrow afternoon once they are both available. Our speaker today is David Hartman. He is a licensed Chinese medicine practitioner from Brisbane, Australia, who has been in practice since 1997. David is well known for his signature acupuncture point combinations, on which he has also authored a textbook. David has given presentations at conferences and seminars all over the world. He is always researching and learning new things in the field of Chinese medicine and has a wealth of experience in the field. It is such an honor and privilege to have him here with us today. So without further ado, David, please go ahead, take over and share your PowerPoint.
As always, Donna and eLotus, I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, really excited about today. I must admit I was starting to get a little bit panicky. The slides were only finished about 8 hours ago. So primarily that's, as some of you know, I had a knee reconstruction late last week on Friday. And have been a little bit out of it with various drugs like endone and whatnot, but had the last couple of days off of those in order to be able to concentrate a bit more. I also did a lot of this last week before the operation, so because I knew that I would be running out of time. So don't be cranky at eLotus. If your slides have arrived late, that's entirely my fault. As I said, literally 8 hours ago, close to midnight, I had it finished here. So I'm really proud of them though. And going back through them early this morning made me realize again just how much of this type of stuff we just don't have out there. And that's pleasing to me in the sense that I've been able to collate the information from dozens of different places and put it together for you today and for the last 6 workshops preceding this. There's so many good books out there, and I guess like any book, you're always going to be short of words potentially in terms of what you're allowed to write about. And even the book that I just showed you before that Donna mentioned, you know, it's huge. There's over 150,000 words in it, but I was still restricted in terms of what I could put in it in terms of word limit. So I guess for me, a workshop like this series was an opportunity for me to be able to maybe take what authors were hoping to do with their books in terms of the next phase or the next steps, to add in the extra layers. And that's what I've done throughout all 6. And that's what this 7th one is doing, is it's adding those extra layers. It's taking your guardian or primary archetype, it's putting it with your secondary or support archetype and giving it a name. And then we go through each of those. And as we go through, I'll get a sense of sort of the percentages of how many people think they are that particular archetype. We'll do one more run through of the primary archetypes, and we'll look at the merged ones as well. So as I said, really excited about today. It's 4 hours instead of 3. I was very conscious that the 3 hours just wasn't going to be enough time to get everything we needed done. And even then, the 5 spirits component of all of our workshops has been honoured, but then moved into some workshops later in the year with eLotus as well, which I'll talk about later with you as well. So where am I? Let's get into it. So as I said, 7th in the series. Was good of Donna to let us know that they're all up there now. I hadn't sort of talked to Donna, being a 4-hour workshop. I thought maybe we might have a couple of sneaky little breaks, time pending. One sort of in around about an hour and 15 minutes, and then one with about an hour and a half or so to go. Just quick ones to freshen up and charge into the next bit. I'm conscious that the slides are quite wordy, and sometimes that can be a little bit draining on the eyes looking at the slides. So just that chance to maybe just step outside, freshen up, and get back into it to engage yourself. Okay, so as you would know by now, for those that have been here before, which I would say is most of you, I like doing little quotes about ourselves. This one says, always dream and shoot higher than you know you can do. Do not bother just to be better than your contemporaries or predecessors. Try to be better than yourself. Beautiful way to start the workshop. Try to be better than yourself. It's interesting because that's something that I've always pondered, not just in terms of my own personal development and my families and people around me, but also just in terms of what I do in my life. So as an acupuncturist, try to be better than what I currently am as an acupuncturist. So this striving to be the best version of my acupuncture self, in the same way that I try to be the best personal version of myself. And that prompts me always to embrace the whole CEU, CPD point situation. And I always do so many more than I need to. In Australia, you have to do 20 hours a year. They're mixed up between various different pieces of what those 20 hours represent, but essentially I end up usually doing around about 200 rather than 20. But anyway, it's my life and I like doing that. So that's the list of what we've done so far, as some of you would know. And this is what we're doing. So because you only just got the slides, you might not have had much of a chance to look through it. So it's made up of 5 parts. And as we work through, I'll dedicate each section, make sure we're on top of what's going to be in it. But we'll quickly look at the review of the 5 spirits and 5 element archetypes just one more time, just so you can fortify your own understanding of what archetype you think you are in terms of your guardian and support act. We'll do a little poll, check the numbers, percentages, Then we'll go through the guardian or primary archetypes and daily life scenarios. This is always a lot of fun. And I say always a lot of fun. I've only ever actually done it twice before, but it's just so engaging in terms of putting these archetypes into real world situations. Then we'll look at the merged guardian support act archetypes. And as we go through each one, I'll get you to tell me if you're that person or you think you're that person, and we'll get a tally as well. And then look at the comparisons of, say, a fire-wood combination versus a wood-fire combination, the little differences between those, and so on. So I can see that you're all putting in your chat where you're from. We've done that every week. So thank you for doing that. As you know, I'm in Brisbane, Australia. And in really exciting news, with the world now opening up again, I am actually coming over to Los Angeles and doing some live stuff with eLotus, which we'll talk about at the end of the workshop. So my question to you is, do you feel you have worked out what your guardian and support act archetypes are? Now, I don't need you to tell me what you are. I just need you to put in your chat whether you think you are. So it's a yes or a no, essentially, in the chat for me, please. Still working on it. Yep. Yes, yes. Some no's. Yeah, I think so. That's fair. Yep. And maybe today, again, because it's embracing the merging of the two archetypes you're most likely to be, it might further get you understanding what that is. Yeah, not entirely clear on what order. Yeah. And some of you emailed me about the order of your 5 archetypes as well, and I thank you for that. I've been, as you know, a little bit slack with the emails. I just, as again, a lot of you know, I've just had 3 big things happen all really close to one another, and that's made me very time poor. So for me, thank you for that, everyone. Again, as some of you probably are aware, my guardian archetype is fire and my support act is water. If it was the other way around, I would be more than happy to continue to do online workshops, whereas my preference is to be out in the world doing the live stuff, seeing the people in front of me. And yeah, I get nervous for a little while, but I think that fortifies me, gets me ready for the challenge of spending time with you and hopefully exciting you about our beautiful medicine and what our medicine can do. And we'll go through this in more detail. So because my guardian is fire and my support is water, we put the primary or guardian first and the support second. So I would be fire, water. Coincidentally, in regards to Chinese astrology, I am a water ox. So born in 1973. So from that perspective, water is not my primary. I have tried to be very, is it objective or subjective? I never get that right, about which archetype I am. And there's just no way that water is my primary. There's too many things in it that I say no to, but there's more that I say yes to than the 3rd, 4th, and 5th ranked archetypes. As you know, through the workshops, and if this is your first time, well, this is helpful for you to know that APC, when you see that written, means acupuncture point combination. It's like a point prescription, a treatment construction, what points you would use or consider using. A number of textbooks, workshops, conferences, and Chinese medicine peers are responsible for the point combinations presented in this workshop. They're not all my designs. A lot of them are partially or even entirely in my 2 books. I showed you one. This is the other one. At the end of the workshop today, I'll just quickly discuss the differences between the 2. And 30 years of clinical experience plays a part. I mean, I started treating patients officially in 1997, but the reality is I was actually treating patients back in 1993 in student clinic. So it's hard to believe. It's, my goodness, that it's almost 30 years of my life. And I wouldn't want it any other way. It's just the best career to have. Understanding the condition from a Western perspective, it's like when you break down what a Western condition is, and then you convert that across into what that would represent from a Chinese medicine perspective, is sort of what I'm getting at there. I think for me, doing that makes sense. And then when you look at the point combinations in the tables, you look at it and go, well, what would I do? What would I change? But I want you to just always feel compelled to challenge yourself. Why am I making those changes? Oh, I just don't like that point. Is that a good enough reason? Why don't you like that point? Is there a reason? If there is a reason, does the reason still stand? Maybe it was a reason that you made 20 odd years ago, but doesn't apply anymore. I'll give you a quick example. When I first graduated, pericardium 6, or Naguan, and heart 7 Shenmen were 2 points that I found hurt a lot on me. So obviously we've got the heart 7, and then the pericardium 6 partially down the wrist between the 2 tendons. They hurt me a lot when I was a patient, and I felt like I lacked confidence in regards to being able to put those points in effectively without taking that idea of it hurting me and inserting that into the treatment with my patient. And so I tended to avoid those 2 points for probably a couple of years before I realized that I couldn't keep avoiding them because they were so good. You know, they're really probably top 10, top 20 points in the body. Heart 7 would be in the top 5 for me personally. So it's about getting the confidence to do the points in a way where you don't hurt them. But that's where, for me, if I'd seen those points in a point combination back when I first graduated, I would have shuffled those points off and added in some more to avoid that dilemma that I was facing. But, you know, basically after a couple of years, I needed to be smart about that and go, does this still apply? No. We'll then start using it. You can always use the heart, Shen, and pericardium, or Shin Bao, heart's embrace, for regulating archetypes, spirits, and emotions. So there are a lot throughout the workshops across all 7 of these. And there is a dedicated section in case you did not see that particular workshop. I think it was the second one in the series, the Shen Fire workshop. There's more time spent on heart, Shen, what it means, how to treat, what the pericardium is, how it works, how you treat it. All right. Neil Gaiman wrote Coraline, which is interesting. I've got 3 daughters. They're 18, 16, and 14. 2 of them hated that movie, and one of them loved it. Go figure. They've never read the book. But anyway, the quote here is not from Coraline. It's from the Graveyard book. Basically, it says, kiss a lover, dance a measure, find your name and buried treasure. Face your life, its pain, its pleasure, leave no path untaken. And again, I think it fits perfectly with our whole archetype system. It probably sounds a fair bit like a wood archetype person, leave no path untaken, but the whole lot of it embraces all 5 of the archetypes. Kiss a lover, dance a measure, fire archetype. Find your name and buried treasure, metal and water archetypes. It's like it's looking at all of them in regards to how you might use them collectively to enhance your life and to help you embrace your life. Beautiful. Now, again, just wanted to mention that the 5 spirits, as I said, in the end, because there's so many slides, they've missed out on really large coverage. So I do have a few slides here just to remind you. Again, you can always go back and look through the old workshops, especially if you've got the Gold Pass, or if you've already purchased them anyway. just to give you that reminder. But what I'm also going to do is we're going to use them again in a fresh way with heaps of new additional content in 2 future eLotus workshops, which are in July and August, I think. But again, we'll look at that at the end of the workshop, discuss what's going on there. Now, some of these slides are pretty important for your quiz. So don't forget that the 5 spirits have a close relationship with the 5 elements, the 5 archetypes, all of the emotions. They are linked to a series of points on the outer run of the bladder channel on the back. So the trunk, the back of the trunk, bladder 42, 44, 47, 49, and 52. That's not in the quiz, but just knowing that that outer bladder channel has those 5 spirit points on them. And of course, the kidney spirit gate. The kidney spirit gate are in every APC today. The outer run of the bladder channel have been sacrificed for favor of the back shoe points. So it's enhancing the archetype and to a lesser extent the 5 spirit by stimulating the organ which houses the spirit. So if I say I'm going to treat bladder 18 because it treats liver, which is a wood-based organ, and it houses the hun, it's also part of the wood archetype. So collectively, by treating bladder 18, we're treating the wood archetype, the hun, and the liver and gallbladder. So that's the process. We'll go into that in more detail as we go through each of the APCs. The 5 spirits are a collective of 5 different parts of our soul that are inherent in all of us. So again, they collectively, if this is the line of normal, they are the ones that move up and down all the time. You could have been tweaked on something that's just happened and one of them has surged into an excess and maybe another one's pushed down into a deficiency just to regulate everything out. They're constantly moving up and down. You'll have favorites. Your favorites might be in line with your primary archetype, but they might not. Either way, it's considered a positive and almost a negative that you've got your favorites because they charge into war for you when you need them to. So that's a positive, but sometimes they charge ahead of others when the others would be better suited because it's your automatic fallback position. When we do numerology archetypes later in the year with eLotus, it's the same thing. You have these arrows of which are referred to as strengths and weaknesses, but to think that it's always a strength is a mistake, because if it's always there when others should be charging in there instead, it's actually a weakness, and weaknesses themselves can become strengths. So that's the same with the 5 spirits. They really need to be evenly distributed, and when any one of them needs to take charge, it does above the others. So there's an even distribution between excess activation, deficiency, subtle settling down, we don't need you at the moment, and then it comes back into normality again. So they're all in there. Whereas the 5 archetypes don't operate the same way. They're much more solidified structures that move much less dynamically. No less amazingly, but much less dynamically. So those were important slides for your quiz. There is a slide at the end which tells you what slides you should focus on for your quiz. So now moving on to the 5 element archetypes, we're going to spend about 15 minutes going back through the key characteristics to ensure we're all up to speed. Looks like there's 138 people currently in the room. So just make sure that we're all happy so that when we get to the polling, we're in a position where we can say which archetype we think we are, or if we think we're mixed or we're still unsure. There's no right or wrong. And it should clarify what's your primary or guardian archetype and what's your support act. And again, these are all still important for your quiz. Knowing what 5-element archetype your patient is means that you can more effectively communicate in their language. It almost feels like cheating in some way. It's not. What it is it allows you the opportunity to communicate in a way that your patient recognizes, which they then embrace, which creates a level of trust, which also creates a level of faith and belief that what you're doing is helping them. Because ultimately we want them to heal themselves. And if they're on board, then they're much more likely to heal than someone that is still standoffish and who is this bloke Davo and do I really trust him and so on. If I can frame my language so that the patient goes, wow, David really gets me, then straight away you've got your patient locked in and much more likely to get good results from it. Now, do you have to just do that with your patients? Well, no. Why? You should hopefully be archetyping yourself, but also your friends, families, enemies, whoever. Often the people that we don't get along with are directly because we have an opposing archetype. So we buck. We're like magnets that don't attach. They bounce off each other. And if you understand that more, people that you don't get along with, even if you don't necessarily start getting along with them, you'll at least understand the reasons for why that's happening. And that's incredibly, is it gratifying? It's not the right word. There's a lot that you can gain from that. Or people that you just can't understand. Who is this dude? I just don't get him or her. If you understand their archetype, suddenly you start to understand them. So again, as I said, not spending a lot of time on this because we have done this, but for those that are joining us for the first time, and for those that want one more look at the archetypes quickly, we'll get some benefit from this. And it never hurts to consolidate your knowledge. Every single workshop that you do with me, my hope, and this is what I hope if I'm the attendee, I hope from this workshop you learn something new, you are reminded of something you've forgotten, that's always gold, and it consolidates your knowledge. Those are the three things that I hope you'll always get from any workshop I do. In the same way, I hope I get that as a participant in workshops that I attend. So the wood archetype, the organs are important for your quiz, remembering that, of course, liver and gallbladder are the wood archetype, yin and yang organs. Every archetype has a yin and yang organ pairing. Again, the labels that you're probably familiar with are adventurer, pioneer, founder, forerunner, these types of labels that we give a wood archetype, which leads into what their characteristics are, which is that they're very creative, dynamic, expansive, full of vitality. They show initiative, solid clarity, judgment, and foresight. I love these two words together, appropriately assertive. You might be wondering how that's possible. It's one of those interesting ones. They can be very assertive in a way where you aren't as put out as you might normally be because of the language, the way that it will make you feel like, well, okay, that was relevant and that was necessary at that point. So jumping in at the right time, being assertive where it was required. Wood archetypes are very good at that. They do come across as being a bit hypocritical, but generally speaking, it's that they just want to better their personal best or better someone else's personal best. So they make a rule that applies to a current standard, and then they improve on that so it becomes the new rule. Very flexible approach, adaptable to change, decisive, direct, committed. When they go at something, there really is no stopping them. It's like a train going at 100 miles an hour. It's just That's a wood archetype charging towards their goals. They desire purpose, which is why they set their goals and charge towards it when they're of the belief that they will succeed. Compelled to win, they are the archetype above all the others that want to win more than any other. They briefly weigh up risk versus reward. It's done very intelligently, but it's done faster than any other archetype, but no less they still really do use an incredible amount of intelligence and weighing up the pros and cons. They're just faster at it than other archetypes. It doesn't make them better at it. Everyone's different. Sometimes people need to take a while to get where they need to go and decide on something. And that doesn't make them any less valuable than the person that flies out of the gate and works it out as they're going. Confident yet prudent, courageous, bold, brave, ambitious. You're getting a sense of why they're explorers, why they're adventurers. Fiercely independent. Really, out of all of the archetypes, you kind of have two that want to be around others and have to be around others. That's fire and earth. Wood are very independent, but then they love being around others as well. So they're a bit of a mix. And then you've got the metal and water, which prefer to be on their own. So you've got the five of them divided up into two scenarios: independence and being around others. So there's that classic 5 fitting into 2 Chinese medicine idea. And they're balanced between their Hun, their heavenly dreaming soul, and their Po, action, doing, being soul. Fire archetype has 4 organs, 2 yin, 2 yang. Yin is heart and pericardium, and the yang are small intestine and sanjiao, or triple energizer. They're often referred to as the magician, salesperson, wizard, shaman, entertainer. It took me a long time to understand how to come across as enthusiastic staring at a screen. Thanks to COVID, of course, that's the way our workshops have typically been the last, what are we now? How many years is that now? 2, 3? 2020? And so, yeah, again, for me, I engage better with the people that I can see, and I operate off the visual cues, the verbal and non-verbal body language, which is impossible to do when I'm staring at words on a computer. So the fire archetype's got to be a little bit more clever with the way that they engage an audience through a screen. And the idea is that we're more excited, lively, enthusiastic. You've seen me flinging my arms around all the time. It's just something that I do. When I'm live, I wander around all the time. I don't stand behind a lectern. I don't like feeling like there's something between me and the audience. I like to have that space, that openness, and that connection. Fire archetypes can be very persuasive, making them very good salespeople. They're even better at selling something that they believe in, but they're still good at selling something even if they don't believe in it. They take pleasure in achieving their goals, very talented communicators, can be quite spontaneous, which can negatively impact on other archetypes that want more structure and focus and planning. Happy and hearty, emotionally balanced, usually, but can fly off the handle and be emotionally inconsistent. Much prefer the life's ups, not the downs. Always very optimistic, compassionate, empathetic. Lots of fire and earth archetypes would be considered empaths, if you were to use that label. Saturate normal with phenomenal. Very alert, mentally clear, aware, self-oriented, etc. Very devoted, enchanting, charismatic. They're touchy-feely, love being around other people, often harmlessly flirt. It's all good fun. It's a buzz. It's adrenaline. Makes them feel good. And they have a very strong Shen. So typically good memory, consciousness, thinking, sleep, emotions, again, when balanced. Earth archetype, yin organ spleen, yang organ stomach. And Saviour is kind of my favorite, I guess, term to describe an earth archetype. Negotiator, mediator, peacemaker, caregiver, caretaker. All these are really good labels for them as well. It gives you a good sense of what an earth archetype is, what their yearnings are, what they feel they must do in their life. Very sociable, sympathetic, considerate, attentive, loyal. Now, they have a very focused intent. So when they've decided that they're going to chat with you, then you become their whole world. And it's not creepy or awkward. They know the appropriate distance to sit or stand from you, so you don't feel smothered or that you're in their personal space, but you're not too far away from them that the connection is lost. Because they understand who you are. Earth archetypes are a little bit of all the other four, sorry. And so they recognize who you are very quickly. Once they know who you are, they frame their language, and then they work out, based on your archetype, what's the language and the appropriate distance to sit or stand from you, in terms of how to communicate effectively with you. Very stable, poised, composed, nurturing, supportive, agreeable, self-aware, and understand you as well. So through that, they'll make them very good counselors, because they can very effectively direct the conversation, not by telling you what you should do, but by questioning you in a supportive way for you to come to your own conclusions. And this needs very good constructive thinking, really good intelligence. Their senses are completely on. So they just are paying attention to you, and they're very aware of you and the little bubble you're in, but also the dynamics of what's happening around them as well, at least to some degree. Exceptional memory, quick learner. They remember things with minimal study. They are so good at remembering people's names, what they do for a living, their partner's names, their kids' names, their favorite hobby, all this stuff. They're the best at that out of all the archetypes. And they're very good at living in the now by productively reflecting on past events, both the successes and the failures, and learning from them, and even immersing themselves a little bit into the future to get a sense of what's happening there. But the primary focus of their life is the present moment. So that's the earth archetype. Metal, yin organ lungs, yang organ large intestine. So they're like the alchemist, modifier, architect, experimenter, creator. I think creator is a really good word, but it kind of isn't perfect, because metal archetypes create new things, but they also make existing things better. So creator doesn't fully give a sense of what the metal archetype is capable of. So they're able to discriminate, very good at staying level, moderate course, quite reserved. They're very good at grabbing and building and obtaining things that they need to create the new thing or make something better, but then they can throw that out to make space for their next project when they're healthy. When they're unhealthy, they never throw anything away. They can be intrepid and adventurous if they feel safe, and adaptable to change if you give them enough time. They have very strong sensation using all of their senses, but also just in general sensation on the skin, sensation with their nerve endings and their nervous system. Very good, strong awareness there. They love finding the beauty in things. They're very precise and methodical and very, very ethical people, almost to a fault. In good news, they are just as personally invested in their own desire to be the best they can be. They then throw that onto the rest of humanity, which is both a strength and a weakness, I guess, depending on how you want to argue it. And it can be a negative even just for themselves, because they might have too high a standard that they're trying to set and they keep falling short. So they can be self-critical of that fact. Calm, stoic, patient, optimistic, neat and tidy, able to spot liars from a mile away, emotionally balanced. They are extremely emotionally balanced. They don't tend to get too emotional about much at all. Even when you think that it would have been the appropriate response, they just are good at that level headed kind of standard. And they set high standards for themselves and subsequently the rest of humanity. So that's metal, and then water. Yin organ, kidneys; yang organ, urinary bladder. They're also known as the philosopher, truth seeker, thinker, intellectual, academic, theorist. I like philosophy or philosopher as a term. I guess for me, being that the water archetype is my support act, philosophy has been a real rock for me in terms of getting a sense of who I am and what the world is and how that connection sort of all ties together. So philosophy is philosophia, so love, wisdom. And I think that that's beautiful because it really gives a sense of what that philosophy is doing for me. I love wisdom. I love understanding or trying to get a sense of what people have said before and inserting that into my own philosophical system. So in a sense, I learn from other philosophers to become a philosopher myself. So what is their characteristic? A water archetype: very honest, incredible memory. The earth archetype, and we'll talk about this a bit later, and we've done it already throughout the workshops. The earth archetype uses their senses to remember everything. The water archetype uses both the senses, but also this inherent knowledge about the world, that what they call pre-heaven intellect. They're also more introverted. Being introverted, they're happy with because they can quietly observe everything that's happening around them and allow that to filter in through their senses to remember. Whereas earth archetypes can be extroverted and or introverted based on the conversation. Either way, whatever they slip into, they're using their senses to remember everything as well. Anyway, they're very, very intelligent, as I said, water archetypes. Very sensible, practical, utilitarian, strong willpower and determination, very tranquil, quite curious, contemplate stuff, which builds on that curiosity. They find something that's interesting for them. For me, it's often a quote that I might see up on on a screen in a movie or on a TV show, or someone says it, and then I go, oh, what was that? And I rewind it, play it again, and then I might write it down or record it on my phone or something like that. And then I'll go, who said it? And learn more about it. And from me, that's where that curiosity builds, and go, why do people say that thing? Or what does that mean? And away I go. And this is just my support act archetype. That's how powerful a support act can be in terms of the power it can create in your world. Water archetypes are very self-sufficient, durable, tough, particular. They get things done, and they feel good after they've achieved something. They get like an adrenaline charge from it. Have a very good imagination and creativity. They persevere despite fear when they're healthy. When they're unhealthy, fear blocks stuff. So the fear is no longer an emotion that they bounce off effectively. They become caught in it. Energetic, very modest, tell the truth, very cautious, conservative, careful. Articulate and well-spoken when they need to be. They just don't speak as often as other archetypes, but that doesn't mean that they're not any less articulate, well-spoken, intelligent sounding. So that is the archetypes in a summary. Just checking how I'm going for time here. Stephen Fry, one of my faves. He is just so amazing. I actually recently just read a book of his, I think it was called Mythos. It was a book about the Greek myths and legends, told in a way that, in true Stephen Fry fashion, he brought the gods and goddesses into modern day life, and when they spoke to one another, they spoke in 2020 language and 2022 language. It was beautifully presented. Bless him. You are who you are when nobody's watching. Love this. Think it's very, very relevant. It's interesting that I don't know if I've said this in the previous workshops, but it's one of these interesting things where Jessie's my youngest. She's 14 and a half now. When my wife was pregnant with Jessie, I stopped drinking alcohol when she did, and we went the whole year without drinking together. And then I kept going and went over 500 days. In that time, I went to Vanuatu, which is a little island, little series of islands off the coast of North Queensland, about 4 hours east. Kind of not particularly close, but let's just say in and around Fiji, Noumea, if you've ever heard of those places. And I worked as an acupuncturist in a clinic of a friend of mine. They didn't have an acupuncturist in their main town. And so I would go over every few months, work for 2 weeks, come home for a couple of months, go back for 2 weeks. And this was all during the time when I wasn't drinking. And I remember once one of my friends saying, you know, you're gone for 2 weeks, your family wouldn't even know if you were drinking. And I said, yeah, mate, but I would know. And that's the thing. You are who you are when nobody's watching. For me, it's just as important that I remain true to myself through my own processes just as much as it is for other people to have impressions of me. So the fact is that I would have known if I was drinking or not. Not that there was any rule. I just was not drinking because I didn't feel like drinking. But I also wanted to stay strong in that space. And so for me, I would have known if I drank, and that wasn't okay. So let's look at some poll results. This will take a smidge of time. I'm sure there's things like Mentimeter and all these other bits and pieces that could have sped this up, but I'm still a little bit old school on PowerPoint, so we'll do it my way. So what we're going to do is look again at what we've had so far, get a new summary with the, what have we got, 141 people here. So your question, so don't put anything in the chat yet, but basically you need to one more time look at which one of these you think is your guardian or primary archetype, meaning you are about 60 to 80% of what you saw written just then. And if you've attended all of the workshops, 60 to 80% of everything that was written. You might be a bit more than 80. It's unlikely you'd be less than 60 because then you're probably creeping into maybe it being a secondary, unless of course you're an equal balance of all 5 of the archetypes. If you think you're mixed or an equal balance, chances are you actually probably would be Earth as your archetype, because the Earth recognizes all the other archetypes. So in the first workshop, way back when, that was the percentages that we had for each of the archetypes. So you can see we had 130 people at the first workshop. And at that stage, the highest was 27%, which was Earth, and the rest was all pretty even. Lowest was wood and fire at 11, up to 15 as the second most, which was metal. And then mixed and unsure made up 31 of the 130. So really 24% were either unsure or thought they were mixed. If we look at how that went throughout each of the workshops, you'll see workshop 1 again on the second to left column. And then from workshops 2 through to 6, we had new percentages. And what we're going to do is fill out the percentages again to see if it's similar. So other than that workshop where we had 234 people, consistently we've had around that sort of 150-ish mark across all of the workshops. Regardless, the percentages are still the percentages. So you'll see that wood jumped from 11 to 14, fire went up, earth came down quite dramatically, metal was almost exactly the same, water jumped quite a bit as well. And we had 19% of people that I either didn't count because I missed them, or they were in that mixed or unsure. So in the end, 81% of the people were happy enough to commit to one archetype as being their primary, with the 19% left over as being either mixed or unsure. So you'll see that what happened is that earth ended up not being the most in the end, and water jumped up, which, as you, for those that attended that, surprised me, but we hypothesized that online workshops suit water archetypes better than live workshops. And so earth archetypes are a little bit cruisy, but they like being around people, so they're more likely to attend live workshops. So their percentage would be significantly more generally in a live, whereas water can be a lot less live. So much so that there was one workshop that I did on this, must have been about 10 years ago in Melbourne. And I had, it was over 100 people in the room, but let's just say 100 because the maths is easy. When I divided up the room, there was almost 60 in earth and there was one water. Just one, standing over in the corner of the room that I allocated for water. And the whole room looked like it was going to tip. There were so many people on one side where earth was standing. But yeah, that was interesting. The only one out of 100-ish, and around 60 out of 100 were earth. And you can see here that this percentage is very different. Generally speaking, all my live workshops, without exception, have had more earth than any other archetype. So this is the first time that that has changed. And this is also the first time I've ever done an online live workshop on the archetypes. So there you go. So what I want you to do is in the chat now, so this is now you guys, hopefully you're listening. What I need you to do is we need to work out, just check where I'm at. If you are a wood primary archetype, please put wood in the chat now. So if you're wood, no one else, just wood. If you're wood, please put it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come on, Woods. I'll just double check in case some I missed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13. Christopher, you jump in when it's Water's turn. 13. 13 out of 142 are wood. All right. If you think you are fire as your primary archetype, please put fire in the chat now. I saw another wood jump in there. So if you are fire, please put that in the chat now. Fires, you there? Let's go back and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What is with wood and fire in this workshop series? Almost identical. If you are earth archetype as your primary or guardian, please put earth in the chat now. Earth people, your turn. Earth's turn. Whoa. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Still less than usual workshops, but that's okay. There are no rules, no right or wrong. Metal people, your turn. If you are metal, primary or guardian, please put metal in the chat now. Metal. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15. Any other metals? 15. All right, water, your turn. If you are water, put water in the chat now, please. Water everywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Thank you, Christopher. 19, 20. Oh, there's more water, surely. 21. Did Earth just go past water again? What have we got? Yeah, water and Earth are a toss-up. Yeah, fair enough. So that is 36, 56, 64, 74, 84, 91 out of 142 have voted. Okay, if you are mixed, if you are a mixed group, so you're comfortable that you have a selection of a whole heap of them, then if you could put mixed into the chat, please. Oop. 1, 2. Yeah. So maybe if, yeah, you recognize something in you, it's percentages, I guess, but if you feel like you're an equal bit of everything there, then you might be mixed. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So about, it's hard to know because mixed is kind of lots of all 5. And some of you have put in sort of 2, but what we'll do is we'll put about 14 there. And then, not talking about supportive at this moment, no. Oh, another one. We'll do support act in a minute. And if you just still are unsure, that's fine. Could you put unsure? Unsure, yep. Any unsures? Okay, that's fine, Marianne. Pretty sure. Yeah. I guess it's one of those difficult ones where you've got a sense of, I guess, selections, or you're really sure about which one you are. Sometimes it's still a process. We can't put everything in the slides in the same way that you can't have everything in a book as well. So there weren't really many there. So that just bumped it up to 8, 10. So there are about 30 or so that either didn't answer or were kind of putting in a couple. But at this point in time, the 2 most were Earth at 28, 20%. So Earth was at 20%. Next was water. So it swapped back around than what it was. Although the last workshop when we did this, they were almost exactly the same percentage-wise. They were only a couple off. Down to the least being fire. Yeah. So there's not really any big surprises there. I guess water being higher than under what I've seen when I've done live workshops. We've already touched on that. So that is that. So thank you. So I will fill that out a little later. I will send an updated set of slides to eLotus later. In the end, there was really only about 10% left over. So instead of 19% left over, there's only about 10% left over. Bearing in mind that out of the 142, there's probably a number of eLotus employees on that number that did not vote. So yes. Support Act archetype statistics. So what I want you to do now is, this is where we put in our support. So let me just write this down. So now what you need to do is, if this is your support act, which is about 40 to 60% of what you've seen written, possibly down to 30%, really not much lower. If you're any more than about 60% of this support act, chances are you might actually be primary, or your primary and support are just so closely linked that they're like one and the same. So the next job we have to do quickly is we need to look at who you are in terms of support. So if you think that your support or secondary is wood, please put wood into the chat now. So just wood support act people at the moment. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 support wood. Wood. 18. Okay, thank you. If you are fire support, your turn. Put fire in the chat now, please, if you're fire support. Okay, let me go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 support for fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another wood. So 19 wood. 5 fire support. Okay, no worries. That's fine. If you are an earth support, oh, there's another fire. If you are earth support, your turn. Earth into the chat, please. So again, just reminding you, this is the support, not the primary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Any other earth support? Either not many people are voting or everyone's going to be support metal and water. 12, 13. No worries. Still trying to work it out. If you are metal support, your turn. Type metal into the chat. Oh, another wood support. Thank you. 20 wood. Metal. Let's go back, count the metals. Metal support is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Any other metal support? Yep, I'll get Elotus to look at that one for you, Michelle. All right, water support act. Water in the chat, please. And this is where some of the water primaries probably ended up coming into that support. Whoa, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22. At 30, we had another fire. So we're at 40, 70, 80, about 80. And of course, we have to count the mixed and unsure in there. So that's another 18, 98. So almost exactly the same number of people have voted in the end. So that's good. Thank you. So in the end, water is the most in terms of support. And there's around about 21, 22% of that. The least support is fire, which is actually the least primary as well, or guardian. So what you need to do now is, you're not going to put this in the chat, but what you need to do is you put the two together. So the guardian is the first word and the support is the second. If you're mixed, try to look at the two that you think you're the most of. And then when we talk about those two groupings coming up, you look at those two and you decide which one you think you are more of, perhaps. So thank you for that. So now we put the guardian support together. So as I said, the guardian's listed first with the support second. So for me, it's fire, guardian, water support. So I am fire, water. When we get to fire, water later today, you pay more attention to that one. You also pay a little bit of attention to the water fire one as well and see if maybe you're that instead. But, you know, be paying attention to all of the archetype combinations, really, because one might just go bing, 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 sirens going off, that this is more what you are. So thank you very much. Just need to see how I'm going for time. I think I'm a smidge behind, but that's okay. So these are the groupings that we'll go into again in more detail. That slide will come up again multiple times. So you'll just see that I've color coded them as best I can to match their 5-element color. Metal being black, you wouldn't be able to read it. So I've changed it to white, which some books do. Although sometimes they make metal white and water black. So go figure. but these are the color codings we're using for today. So each of those 20 guardian support combinations will be defined. They'll have their strengths and weaknesses discussed, and then there'll be a point combination to treat. The point combination has some structures that stay the same throughout, and then some individual point choices that work with the structure to create that holistic APC. But before I get to the guardian support archetypes, I need to finish off just with the primary. So even though we've just gone and done a primary and support, and now you've presumably put the two together, before we immerse ourselves in the combination, we need to finish off with the primary discussion, or the guardian discussion. And that is part 3. So before we get to that, another little quote. We have to dare to be ourselves, however frightening or strange that self may prove to be. Isn't that kind of what makes life interesting? Wouldn't it be boring if you turn out to be not all that interesting? It's a tough one to consider. I mean, people have difficulties in their life, and sometimes those difficulties are hard to move through. In the end, they create opportunities and challenges. I've had a lot of people say to me, I'm not sure where this term came from. It could be American, it could be somewhere else, but the term of things come in threes. And for me, that's what happened. As some of you know, I got a severe knee injury playing touch footy, and then I got COVID, and then I had to have the knee reconstruction for the knee injury. And that has put me out of action for quite a period of time. It's put a lot of stress on the family, having to do more than what they would normally do. It's put stress on me because I've lost 3 to 4 weeks of prime writing time. Hence the reason that these slides arrived 8 hours before this workshop. They'd have been done weeks before if I hadn't lost that time. It's put pressure on, and people say, oh my goodness, David, you've had a rough trot. That's life. I mean, it's interesting. It's fascinating. You learn from these things. It's all just what life is. It's what makes life the beautiful thing that it is. So sure, maybe things come in threes, and maybe they come in 2s or 4s, and does that really matter anyway? Life is still amazing, and I like the frightening and the strange. Not all the time, but just mixing it up. So let's look at some daily life scenarios, and then we will have a break in and amongst all of that. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at work life, routines, what happens when you go grocery shopping, relationship to yourself and others, what happens if you go to a party, or as my kids call it, a gathering, if you go on vacations, and what happens if a time machine existed. So how are each of these primary or guardian archetypes going to look in work life? A wood archetype is going to make an excellent CEO. They can take a company from scratch, make it a huge success, and right when the company is at its peak, they probably will leave. And then you look back as an observer and you go, they did all that work to get it to as good as it's going to get, and then they leave. They could have rested on their laurels and just sat back and just basked in that success and taken all that money and just lived a much more relaxed life. That is not what interests Wood. What interested Wood was taking it to that point, going, that's as far as it can go, and then going, oh, that's an interesting company. I might go over there now. That's just the way they roll. They create something, make it as good as they can, and they'll jump ship and make the new ship a huge success. They often jump careers, and they're very good at doing that, even if they don't have a heck of a lot of experience within those different fields. So again, they might build a particular brand up, which might be diet shakes. big thing in Australia at the moment are these diet protein shakes for weight loss. So you might build up this diet shake company all over the internet. You become a huge success, and then you go, right, that'll do. And then you change and you move into a career in online meeting spaces like Zoom. And you go, I'm going to create the perfect online site, something completely different. And then you build that up and then you jump. It's just what they do. And they'll be hugely successful at it. Fire make excellent salespeople, as we've discussed. They want to be out in the world around others, and they're typically very entertaining people. Earth want to heal the world, so they gravitate towards jobs that fulfill this desire and drive within them. This is also done out in the world. Metal, happy to work on their own or in a team where they're able to escape to their own workspace. They need to be able to retreat back to their own little safe space. They're very methodical, so they're very good at planning, organizing team meetings, or they're just the team organizer and manager, separate to the meetings themselves. So they'll have deadlines, processes, structures that the whole team can work off if they want to. Regardless, they'll have their own structures in place for themselves anyway. Water would prefer to work on their own or with a peer. Need their quiet workspace where they don't get interrupted. It is crucial when they're in the flow to not interrupt them. Water archetypes really do feel like they've lost their connection to their work if you're constantly interrupting them when they're right in their zone. So out of all of the other archetypes, they're the ones that least handle constant interruption. So they will find ways where that won't happen by retreating away from people where they can feel like lots can be done without that noise and bluster and interruption. Routines would, if they have a goal they are actively pursuing, they will have structure and routine. And then they just go at it till that goal has been achieved. If they don't have a goal, they're either searching for their next goal or they have no routine. They just bumble around, enjoying life, probably go on a holiday, just chill out and just have fun and work out what their next goal is. Then they go at it again. Fire like having a basic structure to work from, but are adaptable to change parts of it where necessary. So they will have kind of some sort of a list or structure for how their work will go, but it's bendable, malleable, and they will change parts of it where necessary. Earth, the most adaptable to change, will have routines in place, but these can change, some of them, all of them, very quickly and efficiently. They just roll into a different archetype briefly, make the changes, boom, away they go. Metal have routines and believe that the world would be a better place if everyone had routines that they stuck to. They've got their structures and processes, and they wish everyone else did too. Water do like having routines, especially when they're researching something. Once they finish what they start, they'll search for the next task. A bit similar to wood, I guess, but the dynamic of what they're chasing is very different. Once they find their next task, they get their routines in place and their processing and planning. Wood archetypes will process on the run. Water archetypes and metal archetypes will process in their safe space until they're happy with it. And then they move forward. What about grocery shopping? I hope that grocery shopping makes sense. I couldn't think of terminology to cover the wide-ranging group of people around the world that are watching this. Supermarket shopping, buying your food and water and drinks and things. So wood will have a list, but it'll most likely just be in their mind. They'll fly into the grocery shops. They'll fly out of the grocery shops. It's a race. They'll often snap purchase, get things that aren't on their list, and they love trying new things. So they'll go, oh, haven't seen that before. That looks interesting. Yep, take it. They probably don't spend time looking at the ingredients list on foods. If it looks good on the packet, they've never tried it before, they'll grab it and try it. So typically their list is not what ends up coming home in the shopping bags. Will they care? No. Fire will tend to choose a time of day or a particular day where there are more people around. This gives them a better chance of catching up with people they know for a gas bag, a convo, a bit of a chat, or they might take someone shopping with them. And fire archetypes have a list, either on their phone or a piece of paper. For me, being a fire archetype, I've got a little piece of paper with the items that I'm getting. Yeah, so fire archetypes, you know, I don't need the grocery shop to be so full I can't even move. That's no fun for anyone. But I certainly do like there to be movement, and that interests me anyway. Watching what people do, is it a bit creepy? I'm fascinated by what's happening around me just as much as I am about grabbing the items that I need. Earth prefer to shop with someone else close to them, friend or family, and they have every chance of changing their routine around, so they shop when it suits their friend rather than potentially put their friend out. So they might go organize with their friend that they're going to go grocery shopping at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday, 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. They're all set, and then their friend says, oh, something's come up. You could just go shopping on your own, and then they'll go, oh, no, that's all right. When could you go shopping? Oh, how does 11 a.m. on Wednesday sound? And then they'll look at their schedule and they'll make some changes, and they'll probably go, yep, let's make it 11. They're unlikely to put their friend out. They're more likely to put themselves out so that they can go shopping with someone they know, or shop when it's busier and they'll meet people that they know. And I said before, certainly in previous weeks, they know all the people in the grocery shop, either by face or if they've chatted to them by name, where they're from, you know, who their friends are, their family members, what their job is, all that sort of stuff. Not in a creepy way. Metal will always have a list on paper or on their phone. They must have a list. They will purchase what is on the list and only what is on the list. They will also tend to choose quieter shopping hours so they don't run into people they know. They just want to get in, get it done. They're on a schedule. This fits into this time slot, and they don't want lots of interruptions. Now, they can be adventurous and get things that aren't on the list, but they are one of the ones, probably out of all the archetypes, much more likely to come home with what they had on their list and not much else. Water may rarely visit the shops. If they do, it will be at the quietest time possible so they don't have to be around people, and probably have embraced home shopping. So if they do go shopping again, it'll just be typically when there's less people. They can get in, get it done, not too many interruptions. They're focused, they're trying to plan out what they're doing. It's like when they're working, they don't like interruptions. They're analyzing stuff, they're processing it. They don't want to get interrupted by lots of people. What about self-relationships? Wood will love themselves more when they are performing at their best, beating their best and beating others. Wood archetypes love themselves more than other people. Fire will love themselves more when they are out in the world inspiring others and or selling whatever it is they believe in. Earth will love themselves more when they're helping others and being acknowledged for their efforts. Metal will love themselves more when they're well organized and have good systems in place, solid structure. They give themselves a pat on the back, good work. But also when they improve on something or make something better than it was, or even invent something new, they'll have a better opinion about themselves. Water will love themselves more when they're finding something historical, philosophical, religious, some variation that can make them better people and by default the rest of humanity, or that's their hope. Because when they find something that's really needs to be embraced, or they think that the world needs to embrace it, they send it out to the world. And their hope is that people will attach themselves to it and go, oh yeah, you know what, if we'd listened to that person back then, we wouldn't be in this pickle. What about others and relationships? Would love themselves above others, want other people around so they can talk about their achievements. Fire, love everyone. Don't want to hurt anyone. Want to sell people stuff that they love and inspire others. Life is to be enjoyed in the present moment around other people. Earth, love everyone. Don't want to hurt anyone. Want to heal everyone. Heal the world. Metal, love themselves above others. Will be inspired by people's brains, so will have peers they look up to, have very high expectations of themselves and everyone around them. So if you're a peer for a metal, then you're obviously doing something really good, because a metal has attached themselves to you to learn from you, to grow, to be better. So you must have some props. Water, love themselves above others, will have a select few that are peers, which they respect, but would dump if they supersede them. It's unapologetic. They've superseded their peer. They don't need them anymore. They move and hunt for their next peer. The fact is, metal and water don't necessarily go out into the world as much as the other three archetypes. And so when they do, they want to make it worthwhile. And so it's just the way life is. They've moved on, and what they're embracing is that next phase of their life. What about at parties or gathers? Well, wood will be extroverted and loud and want to be the center of attention so they can tell everyone about themselves and how wonderful they are. It sounds so abrasive, but the fact is that you still really need to have wood archetypes out there. They are the ones that get stuff done out in the world. They achieve immense amounts of things. The world would not be the same if we didn't have wood archetypes. Fire will also be very extroverted and loud and happy and want to be the center of attention so they can tell everyone how wonderful something is or how wonderful life is. So the two loudest at any party, the two loudest archetypes are wood and fire. Earth will be in a small group of 2 to 4 people, and this group is their entire focus. They are saving the day by helping the people in the group. Nothing else matters. Metal will be in a one-on-one conversation with a peer or hiding in a corner wondering why they came to the stupid party. Prefer small, intimate gathers with like-minded people or peers. They don't necessarily want big group settings. They will tolerate big group settings at any given point, especially if they have people there that they really want to spend time with. Water are fairly similar, will be in a one-on-one conversation with a peer or won't even turn up to the stupid party. Similar to metal in their preference for small, intimate gathers with like-minded people or peers, will tend to say no to invites more than they say yes, so they often stop getting invited to parties. And if they're off balance, they'll go, oh, why? Why am I not getting invited to things anymore? On balance, they are very aware of this and they're not entirely unhappy about it. If they want to go to a party, they'll say yes. Okay, what about if you are on a vacation? If you're wood, you pack or travel light. You go to new places. You don't go back to old vacation destinations unless you really loved it and or you didn't do everything you wanted to do there. But they love new places. Decide what they're doing each day on the spur of the moment, so they don't plan out their movements until they plan out their movements right then. Happy to travel on their own, but will meet people whilst away at bars, clubs, restaurants. They're sociable people. They will meet people when they feel like they want to be around others. They'll likely do something daring and possibly crazy, or some people might think that. They will not know the local language. They won't know the conversion rate for the dollar. They won't have taken enough money with them. They won't have packed enough clothes. They'll work it out when they get there. It'll all be fine. It'll all be fine, mate. No worries, mate. We'll probably holiday for no reason other than it seemed like a good idea at the time. And it'll happen after they achieve the big project. They complete it, then they're looking for their next project. While they're looking for their next project, what better time than to take a little break? Fire will probably try and tie some work into their trips and may pack too much stuff to sell. like traveling for work conferences and then staying a few extra days for a holiday. Don't really mind if they go to new places or the same old places. Will make some base level plans for the trip before and during. So they do have some lists and plans. Would prefer to travel with others, but regardless, they'll make new friends while away regardless, because they will want to be around other people. So if they're on their own, they might go down to a bar or a restaurant or a club or a pub or whatever and meet new people. And even sometimes they might not have to meet people. They can just be in an atmosphere of energy and just feed off that and still sit on their own. We'll have an understanding of the conversion rate of the dollar, won't be perfect. We'll feel inclined to learn the language, but we'll likely put that off and we'll just get a language app for their phone instead. Good intentions, they just run out of time. They've prioritized other things over that. Earth, we want to travel with others, so may only go on vacations if others go with them. We want to socialize with those people, but also with strangers, certainly ones that they can notice, they can help. Happy to travel to new places or places they've been to before, as long as they can speak the language of the locals, or the locals can speak their language. Because how are they supposed to communicate with other people if they can't speak the language? So they don't have an interest in that, because they want to be around people where they can help them. How can you help them if they can't understand them? Vacations are all about healing themselves and others. There's no other real agenda for holidaying. Metal will pack the house when going on holidays, or won't go on holidays ever. Will likely go away for a work conference or to catch up with a peer. Will likely revisit past, proven, reliable holiday spots. They know what they're going to get. There's consistency. There's the system structures that they like. Will pre-plan everything before they even book their tickets, including a daily itinerary of attractions to visit, places to eat that are safe, all that stuff. They will learn some of the language and local customs. They will also know the conversion rate of the dollar. Will travel on their own and won't actively seek out company. They like spending time with themselves. They don't need to embrace other people. Water will almost never go on holidays. Some water types hardly even leave their homes. Now, all of these examples aren't specifically what you are. They're a generalized statement where I'm grabbing bits and pieces out of every single workshop that we've done over the past 6. So this is partly what a water type is going to be like, but they can go on holidays because they are very curious individuals. So they may take a trip to a location that teaches them something about the world. So a water archetype might be fascinated by Greek philosophy. So they learn about lots of different Greek philosophers, and then they learn about the Greek cities and their culture and their ruins, and they'll probably feel compelled to want to go to Greece to witness it with their eyes and their senses. They may also travel to visit a peer or for a work conference. If they travel, they'll know the language, conversion rate of the dollar, and the local customs. And again, they're happy to travel on their own and won't actively seek company. What about if a wood and metal go on vacation together? Here's the big not opposites attract. This is not the Paula Abdul opposites attract song. This is the opposite of opposites attract. Oh my goodness, whatever. What a disaster waiting to happen, unless you know this is happening, and then it doesn't have to be. They are absolute polar opposites going on holiday together. One wants to go with the flow, the other has everything planned. This is classic Hollywood. My kids, we got Netflix a few years ago, and they all started watching Full House. Of all the things to go back and watch, I mean, it was a good show. I watched it when I was a kid too, but they went back and watched it. And I just remember one episode where the family went to Hawaii, and I can't remember the names of the different characters anymore, but the father had the list. He had a clipboard with the list of where they're going at any given point. And of course, Joey I think his name was, who's the fly by the seat of his pants kind of dude, wasn't interested in the list, just wanted to go wherever they wanted to go. Joey and Jesse, I think they were. They just wanted to just cruise and go with the flow. So there was this whole bucking of these two opposing forces of fly by the seat of your pants, go with the flow, to structure. This is on at this time. Made for quite a aggravatingly funny episode. They need to understand the other person and allow for their own space to do things how and when they want. So basically speaking, a wood and a metal archetype couple going on a holiday don't have to have it being a fight the whole time. If they recognize the fact that they are opposite, then that's what they do. They meet up at times through the day, and then they go off and do their own things at times. Sometimes metal has some plans, and if it's not too many, the wood can potentially embrace that as a goodwill gesture, at the same time as a wood might say, okay, at certain times of the day, let's just go with the flow. And if a metal is comfortable and trust a wood, then they allow that process as well. There's the give and take. Each gets their chance to shine, and they can also go off and do their own things. So that will work. If it doesn't work, it's because of the fight. We should do this today, and the other person going, no, I don't want to do that today. So how does a wood metal, so the wood guardian with a metal support, or a metal guardian with a wood support, the one person holiday with themselves? Makes for an interesting situation. There'll be inner conflict, but if you embrace who you are, you adapt to the processing of it all. You probably planned out your trip a lot more effectively than if you had no metal at all. And then when you get there, you've got your plan, but you've got that wood part of yourself where the plan is there both as a fallback and some reliability, but you're also willing to leap into the unknown and embrace the flow of things. It would make for quite an interesting person to have as a companion in a holiday, because at any given point, you wouldn't know what they were going to do, but they will have worked out themselves, hopefully, in order to have a fun holiday. Time machine, and then we'll have a break. So let's assume, for the sake of this workshop, that time machines have been invented and are available for purchase. The following scenario might eventuate. Metal archetypes would invent the time machine, go metal. But most likely, to start with, they'll poo-poo the idea until they realize they could actually invent it. And then they'll probably go, what do I need to do? Systems, planning, processing, and then boom, they go at it. If they realize that time machines are not actually able to be invented, then they won't try. They'll also be quite happy to poo-poo the whole idea anyway, unless they realize they actually could. So metal archetypes invent the time machine. They're not interested in selling it, so they give it to a fire archetype and they'll sell it for the metal. The wood archetypes involved in all this processing, they're hoping that they can help the metal archetypes invent it or be involved in it somehow, the promotion of it, some aspect of it. Because, you know, a time machine's never been invented before, so wood archetype's going to want to be front and center and say, hey, I was involved in this. And as part of their service, thank you, they'll put their name on it. So the time machine will have their name on it. The earth archetype, if they're out of balance with the first person to buy the time machine, they'll either go into the past to spend time in places they remember as being awesome. They'll go back into the past to change events that were unacceptable. And they might even move into the future to skip over something they don't want to do or to go to something they're looking forward to. That's when they're out of balance. So they'll be the first person to buy the machine, and the water archetype will be in their cave philosophizing why we even need a stupid time machine, because we can find everything we need from history via the internet, books anyway. So why don't we just if we want to go back in time, use what is available. Don't need a stupid time machine. All right. So again, as always with my slides, I never have enough time for questions until the end. So what we're going to do is have our break now, and then we will embrace the next section. So it is 38/39 past. So we'll come back in 10 minutes. So 49, and we'll get back into it again. And if you've got any other questions, as I said, put it in the Q&A, and we should have time at the end, fingers crossed, to go through that. So 10 minutes break now, please. Come back at 49 minutes past whatever hour it is where you're living. Okay, chat soon. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome back from break. Did you know we have a free website dedicated to TCM acupuncture points? We've made it simple for you to look up a point whether you're a student learning TCM or a seasoned practitioner. Now, allow me to demonstrate. When you go to elotus.org, click on the Core tab in the top right corner. Core, which stands for Collection of Real Essentials, is a free eLotus TCM Learning Resource Center packed with knowledge to help support your growing practice. We currently have 282 Master Dome points and 435 traditional TCM points, with the addition of abdominal acupuncture, scalp acupuncture, auricular acupuncture, and herbal medicine on the horizon. We designed this platform especially for healers like you so that you have all the support you need to offer the best tools to your patients and clients. Let me start by showing you the TCM acupuncture section. When you hover your mouse over TCM acupuncture, a mega menu will appear with links to the TCM point charts, all TCM points, specific channels by organ, extraordinary channels, and extra points. Let's continue with the TCM point charts. This page contains 7 separate charts depicting the most widely used points. Let's select the second group, which is Yuan source, Lowell connection, Shi clef, front mu, and back shu points. It will guide you to the chart, and if you click onto a specific point, you'll be taken to the points info. If you want to learn more about these group of points, you can do so by clicking on the button below. Now return to the mega menu to browse all points. If you like what you've seen so far, join our eLotus Gold Pass membership to gain access to hundreds of TCM courses. And don't forget to use Core during your e-learning sessions. Also, Gold Pass holders have access to VIP in-depth information on certain Core site pages. This handy filter option at the top is what makes this page a customer favorite. You can search by typing the point name or number, or hover your mouse over channel to select specific channels. Assume I'm only interested in the lung and kidney channels. I pick those two and voila. Only these 2 channels will be shown. The 5 shu points are up next. What do you think will happen if I click on Jingwell? That's right. Only the Jingwell points of the lung and kidney channel will generate because I previously selected to view the lung and kidney channels only. To see all Jingwell points, I would unselect lung and kidney from the channel filter. The same logic applies to the other filters: 5 elements, specific points, and body location. The body location filter will show points that are location specific. So if I select upper extremities, all points that are located on the arms will generate. Next is the contraindication filter, which allows you to identify points that are contraindicated during pregnancy, moxa, or needling. Lastly, if you want to go to a specific channel, there is a list on the right side of the screen where you can click on the channel you want and be taken there directly. Let's look at one of the acupuncture points and see what kind of details each one contains. We're going to look at spleen 6. You can either type spleen 6 into the search bar or open the mega menu and select the spleen channel. Details about the pathway, pair channel, indications, applications, and special points are all included for each channel. Let's go ahead and click on spleen 6. For each acupuncture point, you will see the point abbreviation, Chinese name, and the English translation. This is for those interested in learning what the pinyin and characters mean. There is also a picture of the point location, a description of the point location, indications, applications, technique, and remarks. There is also a section dedicated to balance method practitioners. The balance method developed by Dr. Richard Tan is a sequence of acupuncture systems based on the concept of balancing meridians to heal the body. The balance method is synonymous to instant clinical efficacy and is based on TCM meridian theory and arises from classical acupuncture. To learn more about Dr. Tan's balance method, head on over to our Continuing Ed tab to find his classes. Let's return to the mega menu where the extraordinary channels can be found. When you click on each one, it displays the points included with that channel, indications, applications, and its master and coupled points. We have compiled 74 points from all the English, Chinese, and Hu references to come up with this list of extra points. EX stands for extra, HN for head and neck, CA is chest and abdomen, B for back, UE is upper extremities, and LE is lower extremities. By looking at the point ID, you can figure out where the point is on the body. This concludes the tour of our TCM Points website. We hope you find eLotus Core to be a valuable addition to your e-learning with our online CEU courses, and that it makes your clinic life a little easier. Please feel free to email me at info@elotus.org if you have any questions. Let's return to class now.
Donna, just on the break, I just sat down. I had a quick look back through the chat. And whilst I can't spend time looking at it, just said there was one there that just said, how can they know the language if they don't like to interact? They learn it. So a metal and water archetypes will learn the language before they've left their home. And then they'll be very good at